All right, the other property that I just sold was in my neighborhood, the one on Crane Court. Now, guys, this property seriously was like haunting my dreams. I would actually sometimes not go outside on my normal walks with my daughter because I just could not stand looking at the house knowing that we were not under contract. I'm a very naturally competitive person, if you guys don't know that about me. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to not sell this house, especially not just because I'm their listing agent and I have just I don't know, I take it personal, right? Like I have to sell this home. And when they're not selling, I'm like, gosh, like what are we not doing right? And I'm always like analyzing things. But because this was in my neighborhood, I knew we had to sell this property. There was just no way. I could not live in this neighborhood anymore. I would probably actually move if that house did not sell. So anyways, I knew it was going to take some time. My clients thankfully trusted the process, trusted me. And it took about 60 days. The crazy thing with this property is this was actually, when we went under contract, that buyer had actually offered on the home 2 additional times before we took their offer. And, I get it. They obviously were trying to negotiate what they needed to negotiate for them. And, just the previous couple of times, we just couldn't come to an agreement. It just didn't make sense for both sides. And so the third time, finally, we were able to get to a place where everyone said, okay, this makes sense for me. This makes sense for you. Let's move forward and let's do this dance. And anyways, so that was one kind of interesting thing. I've never had that situation where a buyer offered multiple times. Actually, maybe I've seen it offered like 1 additional time, but this was 3 times before we went under contract. And then secondly, so there was a sale in my neighborhood that I thought, in my opinion, sold pretty low. And it was a model match to this house. And this is at no fault to that listing agent, but the model for this property, the model home that was located on the street, like directly behind us, sold last year in October for $795,000. Now we all know the models are super tricked out, but still this was a really good comp for specifically my listing because it was more updated. But what sucks is the builder did not report the sale in the multiple listing service. So the agent who had sold the property down the street in the earlier part of 2025 didn't even know that there was a sale at $795,000. So she's going on skewed data because she just didn't know any better. And I mean, really, unless you live in the neighborhood, which I do, and I was walking that, street pretty much every single day. I was keeping tabs with the builder, keeping tabs with the ladies in the office, like, hey, like, what is it selling for? Like, where are you guys at? Because not only does it affect me and my clients, but it affects me as a homeowner because I live in the neighborhood. So I knew that it had sold at that price. But unless you had looked on Zillow or you knew, you wouldn't have known. And so that's where I think builders need to be held accountable. And I do think they should be required to report their sales in the multiple listing service because they do influence property evaluations for properties that aren't being sold by the new builds. And, they could affect pricing. It could affect what people's opinions of value are because they don't know what they don't know. And if you don't know that there was a sale that happened, then how are you supposed to, really give accurate information? So anyways, when that appraisal happened on my listing on Crane, I definitely made it a point to be there. And I gave the appraiser that data and just said, look, like I know this is a super old comp, but these homes, they were built in like 2021. There is not a lot of data to support, any really anything. There's not many sales just in general. And so I just said, look, this is an extremely good comp. Compared to mine, it was in a lot of ways very similar. That one was a lot more tricked out, but mine had other things too that I think were far superior than the models, like the location, the size of the lot, that sort of thing. So anyways, it was definitely a relevant comp for our situation. And he ended up really taking it into consideration. And I just think it just sucks that other agent didn't have that opportunity just because she didn't know. So anyways, I guess just, for agents, even to consumers, don't be afraid to look at places like Zillow. Say what you want about them, but honestly, their sales data is pretty spot on. And sometimes I even find things, case in point this one, and other times it's happened too, that I don't even see in the multiple listing service for whatever reason. So Anyways, everything worked out, but I just thought that these two transactions both had just very unique things happen that I thought, I think people should be aware, and just kind of interesting stories. And they all worked out, which is good, and I'm happy for everyone.